Good day, everyone. Welcome to the PAX 2020 Protection of Civilians Conference. We are very pleased to introduce you today to 3 days of conference on the protection of civilians this week. My name is Rouw, and I'm the program lead for the Protection of Civilians team at PAX for Peace, a Dutch peacebuilding organization based out of Utrecht. I'm actually extremely proud to be here in this position today because we have a wonderful program for you coming up in the 3 days. I would actually like to start by giving some thank yous. First of all, I would like to thank all the speakers who have dedicated their time into contributing to our conference, preparing with us, and let me tell you, there were some last-minute preparations in order at some point. Second of all, I would like to thank all the participants who have logged in from all over the world and will be joining us actively throughout the 3 days, throughout our sessions. And lastly, I would like to thank our entire team for actually making this work. And I would like to thank our strategic partner, the Department for Stability and Humanitarian Affairs at the Dutch Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Lastly, and you will hear from them in a little bit, I would like to thank our partners active in Iraq, in South Sudan, and in Washington, who together with us make this work. Now, we have done this conference since 2017, and we focused on contributions to the Dutch bid for the UN Security Council. We then focused on the importance of training for peacekeeping, and then on the data needed for peacekeepers to know what at what given time they need to do. This year's conference, we have 3 themes, and we will go into the program shortly. But the main themes we will be addressing today is national contributions to international protection of civilians. How can we actually do that? How might we collaborate together? Tomorrow will be on people and protection. Who are we talking to when we want to protect civilians? And the last day will be on the reverberating effects of armed violence and military interventions. More on that later on. We'll have a great program for you, that I can promise. But first I would like to start off with 3 main factors kind of explaining in some ways why we are doing this conference this way and why we think it's vital that you participate in this conference. The amount of conflicts raging in the world has increased sharply, and our capacity and willingness to actually protect them has not increased at the same pace. That's a rather convoluted way of saying people are not protected to a larger extent than they used to be in the last, let's say, 2 decades. And we need to take issue with that. I don't want to be doom and gloom about this, but we need to make sure that we actually work together in overcoming these huge challenges. We will not have enough means all the time, every time, to do something about protection of civilians in armed conflict, but it sure bodes for working together, for indeed having a comprehensive approach or a whole of mission approach, if you will. We hope that today will also contribute to people having the ability and the willingness to work together on this important topic. Now, second, protection of civilians sometimes is taken as something exclusively of resolutions at the UN or only relevant when mandates are being discussed for peacekeeping missions. And we would like to break that mold a little bit because protection of civilians goes beyond UN mandates. The amount of conflicts that the UN is actively involved in trying to protect people and build peace is far less than the amount of actual conflicts where there would be a role for protection of civilians. And what we find important is to also expand that discussion also to NATO, who came up with their own protection of civilians policy, also to the EU, who is now discussing how to implement their European Peace Facility. We also want to talk about protection of civilians when we talk about training and equip missions, when there are just a few special operations forces who are training others in areas around the world. When we talk about NGOs trying to come up with a security program, the protection of civilians needs to be center stage, and we need to understand that people, civilians in conflict, are more important than the words we bestow upon helping them. It should not be about us trying to come up with a battle of words. It should be really the focus on civilians should be center stage in our work. And we would like to break away from the mold that only the UN would be able to do something relevant on this. Now, thirdly, the protection of civilians needs to be inclusive. At PAX, we've worked for a long time on the Human Security Survey. It's one of our methods to actually try and find out what human security means to people in conflict at any given moment. And this is no small undertaking. We are doing a pretty decent job at it, but actually understanding what the human security dynamics are in conflict is extremely difficult, and they change all the time. People are very different than each other. They have different reasons why they are insecure. They have different ways of becoming more secure. And so that stresses really the notion of inclusivity in protection of civilians. That doesn't only go for gender, age, for sex, for ethnicity, religion, what have you. We need to be inclusive to all those phenomena so that we know what actually might work, not only at face value, but also after a few weeks, a few months, and a few years, so that we really think through our interventions based on human security and all its complexity. We need to, for us to really understand the complexity, we also need to work together. For an NGO like PAX, we have some insights and some important insight, I would say. But we don't know the military insights. We do not know the diplomatic insights, the humanitarian insights. And that is also the reason why we are here inviting you to share your lessons, your insights with us today, so that we also learn, and we learn collectively how we might be able to address protection of civilians in as best a way we can, because it is difficult work and it is challenging to do it under the best of circumstances. Now, this week will be about inspiration and learning. That's the main drive that we have for this week. We have a great many speaker with a lot of experience that will be shared here in a variety of sessions, but we do definitely also want to ask you to participate actively. We invite you to contribute your knowledge, your insight, your contacts, and we have various ways on the platform to actually make that work. We'll get into that in a little bit. What we would like to do now is to actually turn to a few of our partners. They would very much like to welcome you as well. So we have 3 partners that will welcome you through a video clip that we will now go to.
Hi, my name is Tori Holt. I'm a vice president at the Stimson Center in Washington, D.C. We are a policy and research institute looking at challenges of international peace and security, including the protection of civilians. I am part of a program looking at how to help strengthen NATO's ability to protect in partnership with PAX and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs for the Netherlands. So I'm very pleased to be part of the welcome to this extraordinary conference. I'm very much looking forward to what PAX has put together over the next 3 days. Certainly the aspiration to protect civilians is something that unites us, as is the inspiration to try and implement in the field and across the many nations of the world. So I'm impressed by PAX's ability to try and create a global conversation, touching on practitioners, communities, governments, and those in the field, and have us come together to try and identify the best solutions for the way forward. We certainly know that today's conflicts often have civilian harm at the heart of what the challenge is. So I think there could not be a better time to be coming together to have this discussion. So thank you all for joining together, and I look forward to being part of this conversation and all of what I hear over the next 3 days. Thanks.
Hi everybody. My name is John Malid Mabur. I work for PAX as Senior Project Officer. On behalf of PAX South Sudan, I warmly welcome you to this important conference. And I believe with the various expertise and capacities conveyed together in this conference, I expect that the conference will suggest better ways in which partners will adopt a meaningful community engagement approaches. I am looking forward to a very interactive conversation from all of you. Thank you very much.
Hello everyone, my name is Kara and I work with Iraqi Al-Firdaus Society. I'm from Iraq, Basra. I want to say hello for everyone that will attend in production of civilian conference. And me and our team, we are going to make data collection as part of human security survey that we are making in Basra. Before that, I want to send a message for everyone in the world. I want to say Iraqi people or civilian in Iraq that need protection, and this is a responsibility for everyone in the world.
It was great to hear from them as well this day. We would now like to go into the programs for day 2 and 3 before we dive into the program of today. And so I would like to ask my colleague Saba to introduce the contents of the second day tomorrow on People and Protection.
Thank you, Hans. My name is Saba Azeem. I work in the Protection of Civilians team as the project lead for the Human Security Survey in Iraq. As we've already discussed, the theme for day 2 or tomorrow will be People and Protection, where we're going to take the traditional concept of national or state security back to the individual or the civilian who lives in various conflict environments or post-conflict environments in very complex settings, and look at protection from their point of view, where each civilian has unique needs based on their age, religion, gender, displacement status, and so on, and their perceptions of safety, security, and peace. As PAX, we focus a lot on South Sudan and Iraq, so you'll hear a lot of case studies from there, but we'll also briefly touch upon the Sahel region. We have a very interesting lineup that you can see from the agenda already shared, but a few organizations to look out for are the Austrian Study Center for Peace and Conflict Resolution, as well as our staff and partners from Iraq and South Sudan, and the Stockholm International Peace and Research Institute. We also have representatives from the government, from the Dutch government, as well as the UN joining us. Key speakers to look out for include Lieutenant General Ten Eycker, who is the force commander from the United Nations missions in South Sudan, Michel Rentenaar, who is the Dutch ambassador to Iraq, as well as Sajjad Jihad, who is an independent Iraqi analyst based in Baghdad. I hope everybody can join us tomorrow and enrich this discussion and bring your various points of views and help us take this cause forward. Thank you, Hans.
Thank you very much, Saba. I would now like to hand over to my colleague Wilbert for a quick introduction for day 3. Thank you, Wilbert.
Thank you, Hans. As you said, on day 3 we'll focus on the topic of civilian harm. Still a pretty broad concept, so we'll focus much more specifically within that concept on the longer term and reverberating effects of the use of violence on civilians. And we're quite excited about the program that we have for day 3. So in the morning we'll look primarily at cases. We'll look at Mosul, Raqqa, Hawija. After that we'll have a more academic view of the topic, and we'll look at how you can actually model or find the pathways of harm in its complexity and variety in the studies that we have been looking at. And after that, we'll slowly turn the conversation much more towards what is actually the military role in understanding civilian harm and reverberating effects, answering questions like, is it actually a military role to understand reverberating effects? But also, if the answer is yes to that question, how do you put that into practice? We hope many people will join, especially the last session will be a very interactive session where everybody can sort of pitch in with ideas and recommendations for taking this field of study forward. Hans.
Thank you very much, Wilbert. Before I present the contents for today, I would like to briefly go over the platform and what we can actually do with it. So just very quickly, kind of what capacities we have and you might actually enjoy using throughout the day. First off, all sessions will be recorded so that we can share kind of these sessions afterwards, but just make sure that everything you say will be recorded. To engage actually with the contributors, the presenters, the people being interviewed, you can use Slido on your screen. Just please be aware that if you use it on full screen mode, you need to kind of put it outside the full screen mode in order for you to contribute questions and to contribute to polls. We will be using polls throughout our program to really kind of try to engage you and find out kind of what you think about any given topic. There will be a help function. We will have tech support that you can click kind of if you go to the right, the top right of your screen. You can actually request help if you can't log in, if there's any kind of technical issue. If you want to have a bit of a broader question, please contact us at poc@paxforpeace.nl. Some other features are the meet and greet. Please make sure that you have a filled out profile so people can see who they are meeting actually. We also have networking islands. These are thematic islands, and during the breaks you may visit these islands and engage each other on the topics of those islands. And we have a library. Before I forget, the networks islands only work on the Chrome browsers, and unfortunately not at this point on other browsers. Do also visit the library at the landing page, because for each day we've selected some key key publications there, and you may also kind of contribute your own research ongoing work to us so that we might highlight it in the library. Feedback can also be given on the landing page, and as we now would like to hear from you and showcase a little bit the capacities that we have for the polls, I would like to see if we can launch a poll and get your response to that. So I will have to talk over this perhaps a little bit, because there's a 20-second delay in me asking you to vote in the poll and you having the actual ability to vote in the poll. But as you can see, the bars are now moving, which means that people are actually responding to the questions. Just give you some time to see where our audience is this morning. Started quickly and immediately with the military, who are in time, quickly followed by INGOs who are now making a run for it as well. Next question would be, what session are you most looking forward to today? And there's no right or wrong answers here. There's just really kind of to give us a sense to what you are looking forward to. So it's good to hear. To me over here, seeing the poll results come in, it does look like all sessions are relatively popular, I would say, and very happy to hear that, because they all are well worth it for a variety of reasons. Now, I suggest going quickly through the program of today. We will start off with Bert Koenders being interviewed by Roos Abelman. That will be an interactive interview, so you are able to pose your questions via the Q&A. We will then continue with some sessions in which we have invited people who can reflect from Germany and from the United Kingdom on how they deal with protection of civilians. And they might generate some recommendations for the audience to take on and see what we might actually learn from these experiences. The afternoon, we will have a workshop breakout session on 3 topics, and they will run in parallel. They will be on the policy and practice coherence on protection of civilians. So are we actually making sense in the policies and in the practice? Can we work together, and can we actually protect civilians in the end? The 3 workshops will be themed on protection of civilians and security sector reform. How might they influence each other? We'll have a second workshop on NATO's protection of civilians policy and member states and what interactions might take place there. And we have one on the comprehensive approaches on protection of civilians. Essentially, are we able to work together with each other beyond our own organization in an effort to together protect civilians, because it does take all of our efforts. We will then close the afternoon with actually a closed session on the Action for Peacekeeping agenda within the UN. And this will be a closed session presentation organized from New York, actually. That is the program for today. We are very much looking forward to it, and I will now start moving towards introducing Bert and Roos. But before we do that, we would like to hear from you on what will be your key contribution today. Because clearly we do not aim to just present and for you to ask questions. We do ask you to actually engage speakers with your question, to try and engage other participants during the breaks, to actually make yourself heard today. So I'm curious what people will have responded to in a few seconds. In the meantime, I can maybe also just welcome people who might have joined a few minutes late. I can imagine it's not easy for everyone to be here at 9:30 local time sharp, particularly as we have people from a variety of time zones. Some people are very late in the afternoon already, and some are incredibly early if they are up already. So welcome to everyone who joined us late. We are now kind of working on a poll to see what your key contributions will be for today. Thank you. It's a nice mix between open ears and experiences I see coming up here. So open ears are good, and when you do want to share your experience, you're absolutely very welcome. Now, what I would like to do is to introduce Bert Koenders, and it's difficult to actually keep all his titles in your mind and not start reading off a page, so I will just limit myself to the most impressive current ones. Bert Koenders currently is Professor of Peace, Justice and Security at the University of Leiden, and he is the special envoy on fragile states to the World Bank, among many other things he is at this point. Previously, he was the Secretary General and lead on the UN mission in Mali and also the UN mission in Ivory Coast. Besides that, most of you who know Dutch politics a little bit will remember him as the previous Minister of Foreign Affairs. So we have a great amount of reasons why we invited Bert Koenders. He has a great amount of experiences to reflect on protection of civilians. And we hope in this interactive interview that we will get some of those key recommendations and insights from Bert. The interview itself will be led by Roos Abelman. I will ask Roos to give a little bit of an introduction herself, so that we can also switch some of the seats. There's also practicalities here. So without further ado, Roos, may I hand over to you? Thank you.